Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm going to kick us off with a quick demo with my friends. Hey, ChatGPT, are you there? Yeah. It's not there. Hey, Chat, are you there? Can you hear me? This is the joys of live demos, especially with unreleased systems so far. I'll come back to it. Hey, Chat, are you there? No. Murphy's Law. All right, this is the joy of live demos. I might try to come back to it a little bit later. But good afternoon, everyone. My name is Felipe Mion. I have the pleasure of leading our public sector business at OpenAI. Really happy to be here at Carahsoft. I see a lot of our friends from Carahsoft in the back, where we are a big partner here. They work with us to resell into the federal government and state and locals as well. So what I'd love to do today is share a little bit about what we're doing specifically in the public sector, and also really what we are, a lot of where we see this technology going, and a lot of the best practices we see from some of our customers. I do also love a show and tell. So rather than just kind of speaking, I'm going to actually show you some of our tools as well. Hopefully they work this time. They'll all be live demos. And then I will also we have on the line Adam Taha from the state of Minnesota, the director of the Enterprise Office of Translation. And so in a few minutes, I'm going to invite Adam to jump on. He's going to join us from Minnesota to actually share a little bit how they're using ChatGPTs themselves within the state. So with that, I'm going to jump over here, this presentation here, and then we'll come back to ChatGPT in a second. So I'm sure most folks here coming to an AI conference have heard of OpenAI, but we are one of the leading AI companies. So we very famously launched ChatGPT in November of 2022, but we really started as a research organization and then have grown into now a research and product organization. So we have over 3 million developers building on our API today. We have 92% of the Fortune 500 leveraging our products and services in some shape or fashion. Well over 100 million users. I think that's much closer to 200 million active users at this point. We're headquartered in San Francisco, have just over 1,100 employees, and you can see some of our customers on the right. So we've announced a big partnership with Apple that will be coming later this year. So it'll be integration specifically into the iOS system. We have large enterprises such as the PwC and Moderna and Spotify, Morgan Stanley, et cetera. In the public sector, some of the customers we work with are the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So Governor Shapiro announced a big partnership to try to be an AI-forward state and really starting to use one of our first customers in the public sector of ChatGPT Enterprise. And we're also working with USAID, NASA, Los Alamos National Labs, and several others. One thing I want to point out to, and I'll say this several times in the presentations because I think there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, a lot of FUD around this. In the bottom left corner, security and privacy and compliance. So for our ChatGPT team, enterprise, and our API product, we never train on any customer data. Customer data is your data. It is very sensitive, and so there's no retraining on customer data. On our consumer product, if you're more worried about privacy, it is a one-click opt-out. Go into settings and say, don't train the model for everyone, and then your data is your data and will never be used to retrain any other models. So we are at a very critical moment right now when it comes to AI. And one of the earlier speakers talked about this, but from an employee perspective, employees are expecting AI tools to support their work. That LinkedIn stat that was mentioned earlier is true. It came from a survey of 35,000 LinkedIn employees where they said 3 out of 4 employees are already using AI in the workplace. But 78% of those are doing it in a BYO AI methodology. They're bringing their own AI to the workplace. They're only bringing their own personal subscription. They're using it on their phone. They're using it maybe on their computer, company-issued device, but with a personal subscription. And really some of it is like, we're now getting to a point where we now have enterprise products in the markets, ours and others. We're really trying to say, how do we now provide tools from organizations and allow employees to utilize these to become more efficient? From a strategic perspective, we also strongly believe that every company will become AI by default. A lot of times we think back to the mobile days. If you think right around the time of the iPhone release, where everybody was a mobile company. So every startup in the Valley was a mobile company, mobile first, etc. Today, companies don't call themselves mobile. They are just a company, and of course they're doing mobile by default. So if you think through like an Airbnb or an Uber, they don't call themselves a mobile transportation company or a mobile booking company. They're just a transportation company. And of course, mobile is absolutely something that is expected, especially for consumers. We think that's going to happen with AI today. Today, a startup is probably an AI blank startup. So they're AI for customer success, for AI for hospitality. Eventually, that is going to be the same, where these companies are just going to go back to being a hospitality company. But of course, you're using AI. The other thing we really strongly believe is that model intelligence will change everything. There was a quote earlier that was attributed to Ethan Mullick. Sam Altman, our CEO, said it several times, but we absolutely believe that GPT-4o and ChatGPT is the worst model we will ever use again. These models are only going to get better here. And when we really start getting to deeper model intelligence, that really changes the applications, how you use it, how you're able to interact, how you're able to trust these systems. And so one of the questions we get asked a lot is, how do I prepare for GPT-5 or whatever is coming next? And what we say is use the frontier models today. The best way to understand what's coming is to start playing with the models at the frontier today. And the time is now. These tools are available today. If we did nothing and we stopped all AI development, we would already have years and years for this technology to diffuse into the economy, into products and services. But we are continuing to rapidly expand from there. Another thing that's really interesting is a lot of organizations realize this. So 85% of company leaders say AI is a top priority. 80% of employees say they want to learn more about AI. But then only 30% of companies actually have a long-term AI strategy in place. So we're at this, again, and this is what's causing this big disconnect today between this bring your own AI capabilities and how do organizations quickly adopt. I think it's interesting because AI is the fastest technology that we are starting to adopt in the consumer space. We are by far the fastest product to ever reach 100 million users. But in the enterprise space, I would say it is also one of the fastest growing adopted products, but it's still not fast enough. We're still lagging behind where it needs to be. And so the last thing I'll touch on before jumping into demos is really one of the things we get asked a lot as well is how do I adopt AI? What is kind of the methodology? What are you seeing from your customers? And really, I like to think about kind of this very simple framework of these three aspects. So number one is building an AI-enabled workforce. So think about your internal use cases, the internal productivity, the things that you do. Help me draft an email, help me summarize this information, help me do this data analysis. How do I create an AI literate workforce who's able to understand AI? One of the quotes I love here is, you don't get fit by reading about working out. You have to go to the gym. And in AI world, using the models is working out. Right? So you can read about AI, you can come to phenomenal events like this and talk about AI all day long. But unless you're using AI, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get fit. So the number one thing is, how do you create an AI-enabled workforce where your workforce is able to start using the AI tools directly? Secondly, once you get through building that AI fluency, is how do you create AI automated operations? How do I take my internal operations and now infuse AI into it so it can start helping me even more productive through my journey and the things I'm trying to do? So thinking through, how do we use AI for the legal team to help review contracts faster? How do we do things like automate internal Q&As and internal customer support? So what are the operations that we're doing and how do we start enabling AI into those? And then third, is how do you start infusing AI into your external facing products, into the things that you do? So in the state and local government space, the citizen services that organizations are providing, whether it be a sheriff's office or health and human services or really any part of the citizen services that the organizations are so incredibly in delivering, or as you hear from Adam in translations, how do I start pulling that out and actually enabling that into the products and services? I will also share this model is very much what I would suggest as your crawl, walk, run, right? This last part about infusing AI into external facing products and services is actually the riskiest. So when you think about responsible AI, we heard this morning a little bit about kind of cybersecurity and some of the issues there. There are things there are new attack vectors that opened up around generative AI. And so things like prompt injections, data poisoning, et cetera, are things that could happen, especially when you start exposing a public API into other users. internally, it's much easier to control when your own internal users are reviewing it. When you have a human in the loop being the one to say, yep, I agree with that recommendation, I'm going to go forward with it. But just allowing it to automate, the second one, it starts to get a little riskier. You still may have the control of an internal employees. You don't have an external party trying to attack that in any way. You're not exposing that vector, but you still have the issue of those models performing incorrectly. And then third, the run is really when you got that fluency, you understand what AI-enabled operations look like, and now really how do I start doing that? There's obviously a lot of value in the third one, but you really have to get the first two right. Even if you're an organization which contracts out a lot, I highly, highly suggest to every organization to really, you have to start with fluency, even if you're not building it yourself, because you have to understand what others may be building on your behalf and what that might look like and what those work. To be very specific to OpenAI and our tools and products, we have two main ways to work with us, ChatGPT, and specifically for enterprises, we have a ChatGPT enterprise product. And so that is really how you would build an AI-enabled workforce and AI operations. And then we have a second product, which is our APIs, and that's how you actually start building meant for developers. And so that's when you can start doing AI-enabled operations using the API. And then finally, if you want to build external-facing products, really you're doing those on the API as well. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump to some demos and actually show you the product and service. Let me see if by chance this one has decided to work. Hey, chat, are you there? She is not. What I was hoping to be able to show, and this is our unreleased feature so far, we're in beta with our speech-to-speech mode. But again, being in beta, it is still a little bit finicky in times. Is yours working? The speech-to-speech? Hey, thanks, chat. I'm here at a conference and actually a bit nervous because you weren't working before. So I'm standing in front of a bunch of people giving a keynote. Can you help me figure out how to calm my nerves a little bit?
Absolutely. Try taking a few deep breaths, in through your nose and out through your mouth. Picture yourself nailing it. The audience is just a group of friends you're sharing your passion with. And remember, a little nervous energy can be a good thing. It can keep you sharp.
Hey, sorry to interrupt, appreciate it. But let's talk a little bit about the conference. We're actually here talking to a bunch of state and local governments about how to use AI in state and local governments. Can you give me 3 quick ways that you think that state and local governments can be using AI?
Sure thing. State and local governments can use AI to improve public services. For instance, chatbots can enhance customer service by answering common questions online. Predictive analytics can help allocate resources more efficiently, like for emergency response or maintenance.
Hey, and actually, let me interrupt you. Those chatbots, were those be internal or external facing?
They could be both. Internal chatbots can help government employees with HR tasks or IT support, while external ones can assist citizens with inquiries about services, permits, or general information.
Hey, and
both uses can save time and streamline processes.
Hey, chat, my friend Amartyo here is here with me, and he speaks Spanish. Can you talk to him a little bit about those internal chatbots in Spanish?
Claro. Los chatbots internos pueden ser muy útiles para los empleados de gobierno. Pueden ayudar con tareas de recursos humanos.
Hey, and actually, let me ask you one more thing. So I want to wrap up with something. Can you write a haiku about state and local government use of AI and the opportunities, and then just dramatically read it for us?
Data whispers change. AI paints open wide.
Sorry, I interrupted you by bumping the mic. Can you repeat that?
No worries. Here's the haiku again. Data whispers change. AI paints brighter futures. Cities open wide.
Thanks, chat. So that was a little bit about our 4.0 model. And so obviously something that, I think that interaction mode of multimodal voice to voice is just something that is a really magical experience. I'll share one of the things I do, and you can do this with our current voice mode. So this is our new speech to speech mode, which is not fully released yet. We've announced it should be in a few short weeks. But one of my favorite things to do, I have a mini golden doodle, a dog at home, and I'll put on my ear pods and just take her for a walk, and I just talk about my day. And so I prompt ChatGPT, I said, hey, Chat, I'm just gonna talk to you about my day, things that happened, notes, things that I need to do. And I just walk and I just look like a crazy person just talking to myself, with my dog about, hey, I had this meeting, I need to follow up with this person. Remind me I need to send these emails. I need to go work on this strategy doc. I need to go talk to a Martio and set up a meeting with him and do all these things. And then I come back and I just ask ChatGPT, all right, summarize all my actions, summarize my meeting notes, summarize all things I need to do. And then I can go back into ChatGPT and see it all live myself. I'll come back to some questions at the end as well, if there is. So next, what I wanted to show is a little bit more of another capability of ChatGPT. I'm going to show it in the browser here, which is our data analysis capabilities. So obviously, ChatGPT as a chatbot, I think most folks are familiar with. One of the things that we've given ChatGPT the ability to do is actually write and execute code. And so specifically, Python code. So in this case, I'm going to upload a file here. So I'm going to upload a file from my computer. So this file is a data set. I'll explain what it is in a second here. So I'm just simply going to ask the model. Cursor here. So describe what's in this data. And so you can see here what we do is ChatGPT has what we enabled what we've called tool use. So what it is doing live right now, it is creating its own Python notebook and writing its own Python code. So if folks are familiar with data analysis, you're probably familiar with the pandas library. So you can see it imports panda, starts to write some comment about loading the data sets, displaying the first few rows of the data frame, etc. And actually will then start to tell me, and actually let me show you the data first. So up here you can see the data set. So it's a New York flights data set. So this is every flight out of the city of New York in a month, January 2013. And you can see this is a data set about flights, departure times, scheduled arrival times, carriers, etc. Arrivals. And so I can just go down and it will show me, here is the data set. Here are the columns. One of the really interesting things to show you is if you saw that data set, column descriptions were not part of the data fields. So actually you can see here, we see ID, and the model is correctly inferring that that is just a unique identifier for this flight, that the year is the flight and happens to be 2013 for all entries, etc. So it is actually just using the Python code and then using its reasoning ability to understand what is in there by looking at the data itself. So I can even ask it interesting questions. So for example, which airport had the most flights? And so once again, you can see the model is going to create its Python notebook, probabilistically write code that it then deterministically executes. So it's actually writing code in a probabilistic format, predicting the next token, if you're familiar with it, but then executing it in a way, and I can actually go see the code, I can copy and paste, I can see exactly what it's trying to do. So in this case, you can see Newark had the most code, had the most flights. I'm gonna show another example of something we can do here, is I'm actually gonna bring in a picture. And actually, let me get a prompt here. So I'm just going to simply ask this model. So I brought in a picture here. I'll show it to you in a second. And I'm going to say, describe this image and then generate a dashboard like it using the data provided. So we'll see the image here in a second once this loads. And so the image is just a picture of a whiteboard. So we actually went to a whiteboard. We drew in a picture. Hold on. That's interesting that it's not loading. Again, these are all live, so let me show you here. I know the preview is not loading, but this is the image I uploaded. So there's a picture of a whiteboard that just says number of flights by origin, and number of flights by route. So again, this pure image. Now going back to ChatGPT is able to describe that image. It says number of flights by origin, number of flights by route, and then it will generate a dashboard using that. So once again, so able to take that image, understand what it is, and now write code to actually create that exact dashboard using the data set provided. So again, you can actually see, you can read through the code. For those of you who are programmers, understand how it's actually calculating the number of flights, calculating the origin, calculating the flight, and actually doing a plot.show here. You can see it actually errored, and so it's rerunning its analysis, and so it'll correct itself, and now you can see it's actually created that dashboard. So it's actually gone through and created the dashboard that was just a picture on a whiteboard. Again, you can see the 27,000 flights, the flights by origin, and you can see kind of the flights by route. And again, natural language, you could start interacting. If I wanted that pie chart to be different color shades, not necessarily red and orange, I can just natural language ask to do so, and it'll be able to go ahead and recreate the dashboard like that. So another experience, I'm going to switch gears to another quick experience, and then after this, Adam, if you can hear us, we're going to jump to you next. So I'm going to jump to another experience. It was something we call custom GPTs. So a custom GPT, we heard alluded to before, is a lightweight way to customize your own version of ChatGPT. And so in this case, we have these custom GPTs here. I'm going to actually show a very simple one called HR Helper. Click the wrong one there. Let's go to the HR Helper GPT. So what we do with a custom GPT is we can upload a document, or we can give the document, can give this model unique information. So there were some discussions earlier about ChatGPT is great, but it doesn't know me. It doesn't know my business. It doesn't know my context. So it gives me a generic answer. What if I wanted to give it some of the context? And one way to do that is through custom GPT. So in this case, we give it custom instructions. So in this case, we created this GPT to be a member of the HR team. It's going to answer a Q&A about the attached HR policy document. And we're going to try to answer questions on that. And you can see here, we've actually uploaded knowledge, a PDF that the document then reads at the time of inference. So at the time we interact with the model, the document ingests that, or the model ingests that document, understands it, and then is able to provide an answer back. So if we go back to interact with this model, I can ask it, for example, what is the company's policy on remote work? And it will go ahead and read the document and then correctly tell me about Acme company's policy on remote work. It's not giving me a generic answer on what policies on remote work would be. It's specifically reading that document and then giving me an answer about here are the specific things that is said in the document about what this means for the company. I can also, for example, ask it, how many days you get PTO. This is an interesting one I want to show, which is what is the 2024 401k contribution limit and how much does the company contribute? So this is an interesting question, and you can see the model is doing something a little bit different here, because this question is actually a two-part question. So what is the 2024 401k contribution limit is actually not set by the company. That's set by the IRS. And then how much the company contribute is internal knowledge that is in that document. So what you saw the model doing, you can see it actually searched 6 sites. So it used another tool we have given the model, which is browsing, and used Bing to browse the web, pulled correctly the IRS website and some other websites, including Fidelity, NerdWallet, another IRS website, and actually read those sites and is able to now give you information citing its sources. So it's told you where that information came from. It came from this specific site, and here's the specific information. And then the second part of the question, the model correctly inferred for the company contributions, Acme Corp matches 50%, et cetera, up to 6% of your salary, and et cetera. And so it's able to give the correct answers by reading it. So again, this is just a very quick example of a custom GPT. I'm not going to jump into too much detail, but I wanted to show one more custom GPT, which is the weather forecast GPT. And one of the interesting things about this GPT, which gets a little bit more complicated, but really starts to unlock a lot of these AI automated operations, is you can see here in this GPT, we don't have any attached knowledge. But if I scroll down further, you see we have something called an action. And we have a link to api.weather.gov. And so in this case, what we've done is there's a schema here. And so we've actually told the model what's the schema of this API call. And so when we go back to this model to interact with it, the model now has access to this API. And so in natural language, I can ask it, for example, tell me the weather around the White House. And what the model will start doing is actually start actions, and it will call the API of weather.gov, send the latitude and longitude of the White House. That API happens to have a specific schema where it turns something called a weather field office and the X and Y coordinates of that, and then returns the weather forecast from that area. So again, in natural language, just tell me the weather about the White House. It's able to go ahead and correctly pull that we have a big chance of thunderstorms and showers and thunderstorms here in the DC area over the next few days, et cetera. So you're able to see that. And so what you're able to do is actually have this model now start orchestrating internal operations. It can start calling APIs. So we see organizations that can integrate with any sort of RESTful API you have. ChatGPT can now start integrating directly with it and making those calls on your behalf. So you really start being able to use AIs, what many folks call as a true AI operational system, AI OS, and really start coordinating many different aspects once these models can start calling APIs. So again, hopefully that was a good taste of some demos. But what I wanted to do now is, rather than show you kind of some hypotheticals, talk to you about some real world examples. So with that, I want to introduce Adam Taha. From the back, can we switch Adam to the screen here and get Adam up? And as we do that, I'll introduce Adam. So Adam, there's Adam. Hey, Adam, we can see you now.
Hey, Felipe, how are you?
Doing well. Adam's not AI, so Adam is real, just in Minnesota. And Adam is the director of the Enterprise Office of Translations in Minnesota. So Adam, over to you to share a little bit about your story.
Thank you, Felipe, and thank you for the event organizers. If there's feedback from my voice, please let me know, and I'll fix stuff on my side.
We hear you loud and clear, Adam.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, really appreciate the opportunity. So my name is Adam Taha. I'm director of the Enterprise Translations Office here at the state of Minnesota. I've been in this position for about 8 months, and before that, I was actually, I lived in Ashburn, Virginia, and Reston, Virginia, before that, working for the federal government at a 3-letter agency with a focus on linguistics and language capabilities at the federal level. And before that, I served in the Army active duty, also with a focus on language and the military intelligence. So for the last 16 years, I've been working at the federal level and the military as well on language and language technology. Moving to the state of Minnesota to implement and build this translations office, and I'll share my screen very briefly. These slides are designed for speed. We here at the Translations Office believe that government cannot truly serve all if it only speaks to a few. Translation is communication, and without translation, communication is exclusive from the get-go, regardless of any accessibility and inclusivity and equity initiatives that the state would take. If they're not translating their communications, then they will be exclusive. So what is the solution? Now, traditional solutions include staffing or vendors, sometimes both. However, we know staffing could be expensive, especially with a limited pool of certified linguists, and vendors could vary based on their quality of translations and continuity and so on and so forth. There are many variables with that. So both can be expensive and inefficient, and they both create accuracy and speed imbalance. If you want accurate, you need a human. That would take months, maybe weeks to translate. If you want speed, you have stuff like we have a lot of online translators without naming them that could give you instant results, but at the price of accuracy. That's the problem, even at the federal level, until ChatGPT came on the scene. We equipped, since March 1st is when we started this beta testing, and I will share with you metrics and results in a few seconds. We equipped our team with generative AI, mainly ChatGPT, and I'll be honest with you, we tested some competitor models, and they all did not perform well at all. Not even, I would say maybe 50% of what we wanted. ChatGPT is upwards of 95% accuracy every time in hundreds of languages that we are currently using and delivering. So the translation output is evaluated by our human linguists. Our philosophy is our formula for our philosophy, and the way we provide our services is the formula that you see in front of you. Is ChatGPT translation plus human QA, quality assurance, equals a completed translation. Our products, the amount of, and also we use humans to use the corrections, modifications to further train ChatGPT using the custom GPTs to even further advance our language capabilities. So a QA that used to take 1 hour now takes a few minutes. What are the results? Like I mentioned, we launched in our beta phase in March 2024, transitioned out of beta in July 2024, last month. And so far, the speed of delivery is sometimes under 2 hours, usually within 48 hours, 2 days. That's compared to the previous status quo with vendors. And that used to take 1 page of translation. It used to take vendors about a whole month, literally a whole month, 4 weeks to translate 1 page. So we are really, truly disrupting that model, the previous model. High demand so far, 800 translations received, 900,000 words delivered, translated and delivered with ChatGPT and our team. Service expansion, we added plain language. We are providing translations in 100 languages, over 100 languages. Mainly, really, the cost efficiency is the main metric that we are tracking. We are saving, there's no need to put this because we're saving 100% of the cost that they used to spend. I'm talking about our agencies like Department of Health, Department of Human Services, Department of Public Safety, and others. They used to spend an average of based on our latest metrics, we've saved them in June and July about $150,000 in translation costs that they used to incur. Now they're doing with us at no cost because we are using ChatGPT. Last thing I'll say is that some people think it's our services, like some people at the state of Minnesota think our services are too good to be true, and because we have 7 team members. However, we're serving about 40,000 employees of the state employees in state government. 7 team members are able to scale their services, provide that massive amount of volume and demand, and supply of translations because of ChatGPT. I wouldn't be here really if I didn't believe in this technology and its ability to scale and provide an exceptional service. I'm happy to receive any questions. Our email for the translations office was shared in the first slide, and of course, if you'd like to reach me, I'm happy to talk via Felipe, of course, and I'm happy to receive any questions.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Well, one of the ones I wanted to highlight, maybe Adam, just a quick question from my end, is if you can elaborate a little bit on plain language, because I think that's one that's maybe not as familiar, but I think actually super impactful. Can you talk a little bit more about your plain language translations?
Yeah, so plain language, when we started, so we usually test with ChatGPT to see what new features are available, what capabilities are out there, like, for example, Braille translations. That we realized that was available because we prompted it and it successfully did that. So plain language, I know at the federal level, the executive order for plain language, and then that trickled down to the state government. So there's a lot of demand for plain language. There's a lot of convoluted English, a lot of academic level English, complicated English. And if we don't communicate in plain language, then that will exclude a lot of the people that we serve. And what we do prompting-wise with ChatGPT is we give it the document, upload as a file as you demonstrated, or copy-paste the content that we want to convert, and simply tell ChatGPT to convert it to 8th, 9th, 10th grade level English, reading level English, and it would do that. Sometimes it omits some details, so we refine it by telling it not to omit these certain details, and back and forth until it learns. And so far, honestly, the demand for plain language, sometimes I jokingly say we're the plain language office and not the translations office, because it's been such a hit. ChatGPT has been very capable with that, and the prompting is very smooth. And I would say it's way easier than translations because it's very capable at converting convoluted English into plain language very quickly. Sometimes there's the legislature decided to regulate the plain language into 17 standards. We had that with the Department of Public Safety. We inserted those 17 standards that were set by the legislature into ChatGPT, into a custom GPT, and it learned it. So every plain language conversion abides by those 17 standards, thanks to ChatGPT. So, yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you again, Adam. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Well, one quick thing before we wrap. A lot of times we get questions about kind of what does our public sector business look like. So again, I have the pleasure of leading our public sector business. Through Caresoft, we are listed on several government-wide contract vehicles, including NASPO Value Point for those of you in the SLG, or GSA Multi-Award Schedule, NASA SOUP, Army ITAS contract, and our ChatGPT Enterprise product. I'm happy to share we officially have submitted for FedRAMP authorization. So it's not fully authorized yet, but we are in the process now of going through FedRAMP accreditation to now be able to get kind of an authority to operate and be able to use sensitive government documents as well, instead of just public documents. So I think it's really, really early days for generative AI. If you take anything away from the presentation, think back to the quote about going to the gym and just start using these tools. Obviously, I'm very selfish and think that we have the best ones out there. There are many others. Use something. Like this is, I strongly believe, And I voted with my feet. I joined OpenAI 5 months ago. I had a great career going at Amazon. I was just obsessed with generative AI and decided to come right to where it is. And so obviously I'm a very firm believer in this, but I believe that this is one of the strong, it's kind of flip to say, but that we are at one of the most important technological transformations of our generation. And the best way to be a part of it is just use it. You have to just start using these tools, figure out, you don't have to do anything sensitive for your work if you feel not comfortable yet. Just use it in your personal life, ask questions, take pictures, take advantage of the multimodal voice aspects. Another fun trick, I have a 9 and 6-year-old at home. I use it to tell bedtime stories all the time, a choose your own adventure bedtime story. So find whatever way works in your life. Actually, maybe even one more personal story that's a little bit more closer to home. My 9-year-old recently had a surgery. So he was born with a cleft lip. And he had to have a surgery to repair the gum line. And so he had to do a angular bone graft surgery where you take a piece of bone from his hip and put it into his gum and repair. He's doing fantastic. It happened last Thursday. He's doing great. I spent a few hours talking to ChatGPT about the surgery, what was happening. And it's like, look, I know you're not a medical professional, but I just want to learn more about it. Teach me about the surgery. What are the risks? What are the things? We had phenomenal, and I felt much more informed going into that process. So again, figure out whatever works for you, find those things, but use it. That's my one takeaway here. So with that.